Hey gang, how's it going today? David Shapiro here with another video. Today we are going to talk about ChatGPT and predictions. So what I mean by predictions is integration, competitors, and impact. So for this year and beyond. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that if I get my financial goals met on Patreon, I can disable ads. I think that ads are a waste of time. So if you want to do that, there's also a link, several links in the video description for the Discord community that I started. There, my LinkedIn profile, Twitter, and also my homepage where you can sign up for my mailing list. So with all that said, let's get started. All right, so OpenAI created ChatGPT, and you may or may not have heard, but a recent study, or survey rather, showed that 30% of professionals have already tried ChatGPT at work. That is incredible. It has been around for a couple months. So this is probably the fastest adoption curve we have ever seen for any new technology, full stop. So that is important to keep in mind. So let's start with integrations. And so what do I mean by integrations? What companies are going to use it, what products, APIs, data sources, that sort of thing. So integration number one is Microsoft Office. I had a video a week or two ago talking about how Microsoft, they want to integrate ChatGPT with Bing, and then not long after that they came out with Microsoft Office. So they're going to integrate it with like Outlook and Microsoft Word, that sort of things. So like, what do you use it for? Why? Why integrate this with Office? Well, the thing is that Microsoft Office is pretty universal. All lawyers use Microsoft Office. All authors use Microsoft Office. All scientists use Microsoft Office, right? Everyone uses Microsoft Word for drafting any manuscript or monograph. And so by integrating a tool directly with these, you get it in front of millions of people. So PowerPoint, Excel, Word, Teams, Microsoft Teams is a big thing. So it would make sense, like there's no reason not to, right? And they can figure out the use cases over time. But the fact that you can have an intelligent conversation with something, I have videos where I show like using ChatGPT to brainstorm like writing, right? And then you have to switch back and forth between ChatGPT and Microsoft Word. So what if you just put those together and you have a little chat window on the side, and then you can keep writing your work of fiction or your work of science or whatever, and then it can, ask you questions as you go. And in fact, many of you know I have a startup, and the arrival of ChatGPT completely derailed one of the lines of products that I was working on. So it is what it is. I would rather live in a world where there's more AI than less AI, so I don't really care. It's interesting. It also moved the needle because now it's like, oh, people understand ChatGPT. So when I pitch something, it doesn't seem as far-fetched. It's like, I've been saying this for a couple of years, and people often look at me like I have two heads. But now it's been proven. So I'm not as crazy as, I am crazy, but I'm not as crazy in that way. So anyways, how's it going to play out? So I suspect that they're going to have a tiered pricing structure where, you can have the basic Microsoft Office that is about, like $270 a year or something. It's around $300 a year. So you have that, and then there's probably going to be add-on packages that give you different levels of like ChatGPT. Like, you can have the high-end package that I predict will probably cost around $1,000 a year, maybe more, where you have unlimited access, you have the higher speed, because OpenAI announced that they're going to have like GPT Professional or ChatGPT Pro version or whatever. So they're going to prioritize for higher speed, probably longer memory, stuff like that, managing multiple conversations. There will probably be, rumor has it, and I say rumor, this came from OpenAI themselves, where they've been working with professionals, subject matter experts for a while. So I suspect that they are going to try and have like, domain specific versions of ChatGPT. I haven't seen much evidence that OpenAI really comprehends any domains other than deep neural networks. They're a relatively new company, and they're not that experienced as a tech company or as a vendor. More on that later. So I suspect they're going to find more success by just creating a general purpose ChatGPT with integrations. All right, integration number 2, web browsers. So a lot of people have already created ChatGPT extensions for Chrome and Firefox and stuff. So this is already here, but I suspect you're going to see higher end integrations, by OpenAI, by Microsoft. So you'll have like the official subscription-based one, and then it'll basically be just like a sidebar conversation, like the little chat window for all web pages. So you can go to any web page and say, what's going on this web page, or it can read the web page and say, hey, it looks like you're making a YouTube video. You want me to write the description for you? Do you want me to write the title? Here's an idea. And so basically, you're moving away from search-based, right, where you've got your little search bar at the top, to chat-based interaction with the web, which could be really big, right? And because not only can it be your concierge to the internet, it can help you with anything that you're writing. And so I think it could probably replace Grammarly. If I was Grammarly, I would be scared out of my mind right now. ChatGPT is going to single-handedly destroy several business models. Rumor has it that Jasper is in big trouble, so they're going to have to pivot away and not compete directly with ChatGPT. I suspect Grammarly is going to go the way of the dinosaur, and a number of other things. But yes, so integrating ChatGPT with web and web browsers specifically, this is going to change the way that we interact with the internet. So this is huge, and it's coming. Integration number 3, mobile. So there's been some, I don't know if it's a leak or if it's just public information, but OpenAI has an iPhone ChatGPT app in beta, closed beta, I think. So imagine that like you have that same level of interaction where you have either a text-based or a voice-based way of interacting, not just with your phone, because right now it's still a brain in a jar, right? So you can have a conversation with just just the app, but smartphones have lots and lots of APIs and integrations, and it would not be difficult to give that app more integrations. So you can have ChatGPT connected to your calendar, your phone, your apps, your text messages. And so you can just say something like, hey, write a text to Sally that's, blah, 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 does this, or write an email to work that says this, or find, take me to the nearest best Mediterranean place. This is basically what Siri was supposed to be, but of course the language model was not sophisticated enough. And so because of this, we're already seeing ChatGPT, even though it's only a couple months old, it's already pivoting to be a commodity or a utility level tool where people are just going to expect it. So we're going to see every competitor, right? Google will probably have their own built-in version very soon. They've got Palm and other models that they're working on. So I would not be surprised if Android has a native, chat client before too long. And again, these are all universal platforms, right? That's the commonality between Microsoft Office, web browsers, and mobile is everyone has these and everyone uses them. And so it only makes good business sense for OpenAI and Microsoft to put ChatGPT everywhere that they can and let the rest of the world figure out how to use it, right? And this goes for competitors as well, which we'll get to. Integration number 4. This one is a little less obvious. I picked the Lacars system, which is the computer system from Star Trek. So basically, if you are a fan of Star Trek, you always see Picard saying like, computer, run a system-wide diagnostic on blah 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 and plot a course to Proxima Centauri and blah blah blah. So I honestly, this was the point of my Raven project, was I wanted to have a ubiquitous smart assistant that could do anything. And this is basically like Jarvis, right, from Iron Man, the earlier Iron Mans before Jarvis became Vision. But it's like, you could have an intelligent thing that is not just connected to the internet and your smart home systems, but also integrated into more sensors and other things that gives you a lot of home automation and beyond home automation, home intelligence. Because here's the thing, and this is where it gets really sci-fi. Imagine that you're having like an argument with your spouse or your kids, and you say like computer or whatever the name of the thing is, like, can you help us figure out like how to get along? Can you teach us what we're doing wrong? How do I raise my kids right? How do I get through this argument with my spouse? Like how do we like, you can have this personal thing that's around you all the time and is intelligent enough to give you ideas, and it's always listening too. But this also presents a huge security risk, right? Because here's something that humans do automatically that machines don't do, which is one, speaker recognition, and we also maintain social context. And so there's various masks that we put on based on who we're with, right? Your brain automatically keeps track of who knows what in your life. And so there's certain conversations that are not appropriate to have, say, around children or around strangers, and there's certain facts that should be kept private. And so there's a lot of work to do. ChatGPT version 1 cannot do any of this. It is built to have interactions with one person, right? Which is why a smartphone, which is your device or your web browser, that makes sense. But as soon as you have conversations that involve more than the user and the chatbot, you have to have a more fully fledged cognitive architecture. So that includes things like speaker identification. So this I don't think will be in version 1, at least not something beyond like, Alexa, blah, 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 like do this for me. Because Alexa doesn't keep track of who's speaking either, as far as I know. Actually, no, I think you can have users. Anyways, point being is there's some work to do here. Integration point number 5, cars. America in particular is a car culture, and we love our fancy gadgets. So imagine that you don't need your smartphone in your car anymore, that your car has an agent, because your car also has a lot more juice to run larger computers. It doesn't have enough power to run like ChatGPT on its own right now, but I suspect that within a few years, companies like Qualcomm and NVIDIA are going to make chips powerful enough to run ChatGPT locally in your car. And then, of course, a lot of cars have integrated 4G and 5G and 6G once it comes out. So imagine just being able to talk to your car to do anything, like find me a way around this traffic jam, or, take me to my favorite Indian restaurant or whatever. But then, moreover, for anyone who's been in a minivan with children, imagine how much better it'll be if your children have an intelligent entity that they can talk to instead of you, because you got to focus on driving. And so they can play games, they can do education, they have something that they can interact with. Because I don't know about you, but as a kid, the worst part about long road trips was boredom, right? Because you're sitting there in a chair and there's nothing to do. The best thing back in the day was to have, something you could watch, but that's passive, right? If you have something that's interactive, that's going to be a lot more fun, especially if it can help you play games and that sort of thing. So I suspect that cars are going to be a huge integration point for ChatGPT. And again, it's also universal. America has hundreds of millions of cars on the road, right? Like, it's a brain dead, simple business case. Put ChatGPT in there, give it some integrations, and see what people do with it. Integration point number 6, battlefield intelligence in the military. So one of the things that occurs to me is that technologies like ChatGPT have the capacity to read way faster than humans, and also can give you good ideas and brainstorming and stuff. So I'm wondering if DARPA or other things are going to be looking at LLM technologies in order to help streamline battlefield intelligence. And with recent conflicts around the world, it is very obvious that battlefield intelligence and communication is an absolute game changer, right? Because you see some battlefield participants that are still operating like the 20th century, where they barely have functioning radios, and they're competing against people that have satellite connectivity, drones, and better command and control structures. So I suspect that this kind of technology has major military applications on and off the battlefield, right? Because sharing of intelligence and sifting through intelligence, I suspect that there is a lot that can happen here with ChatGPT, on top of just ordinary office work, right? Like, all militaries have clerical work, which ChatGPT could help them with, but specifically intel and battlefield command and control, I suspect there's probably a use case here. Integration point number 7, robots. So everyone's probably familiar with Boston Dynamics. They have the best autonomous or humanoid robots right now. Tesla's working on one. I actually applied to Tesla to work on their Tesla bot because of my expertise in cognitive architecture. They told me no. Their loss. Anyways, so ChatGPT version 1 doesn't have any integrations, and it certainly doesn't know how to control a robot chassis, but it's a start, right? You could have a conversation. You've got the conversational element figured out with ChatGPT, but you'll need a more sophisticated cognitive architecture before you can have a humanoid robot that you can give instructions to and say like, hey, can you clean up the house for me? Or can you cook dinner for me? But ChatGPT, people are already using ChatGPT to solve problems, come up with new recipes, that sort of thing. And so it's only a matter of time before someone figures out, hey, let's combine this technology with robotic platforms with compliant robots. Disney, I'm talking to you because you have the best compliant robots in the world. You need to be working on this. And Disney's going to do it anyways because they want lifelike animatronics in Disney World, right? So then that's only one step beyond that because like Disney with their animatronics, they can interact, that they want to be able to interact with guests and children. That's a huge test bed for creating safe robots. And then it's only one step further before you put it in every home. And yes, I very deliberately picked the Nestor Class 5 from iRobot because what could possibly go wrong? There's a lot of safety concerns here. Integration point number 8, video games. So at the bare minimum, we could have really interesting NPCs. Beyond that, though, you could integrate ChatGPT to help video game developers, right? Because I tell you, if I knew how to use Unity and Unreal, I would be making more video games. But if I can interact with it and just say, hey, like build a world, build a setting here that's like in a desert. And I'm like, no, make it more cyberpunk. No, make it more, like this. And then I can have a natural language interface to interact with game development engines, which will make game development faster and cheaper. So that's one possibility. You can have more lifelike NPCs where you have NPCs that you can have a real conversation with because ChatGPT has a very clinical persona right now, but you can give it any kind of persona that you want. I wrote a book about this. Excuse me. So, and then Unity and Unreal were already working on GPT-3 integrations. Some of those were to help with like scripting and object behaviors, but it's only one step further to have that integrated in real time so that you can have realistic dialogue. And again, it's only going to be a few years before your gaming system is powerful enough to run GPT-3 locally. And this is before we do things like do lower precision, like int8, and distillation, like fine-tuning smaller models, which we can already run today on desktop hardware. VR could also be more lifelike, and we'll come back to that when we talk about competitors in just a minute. Speaking of competitors, so Google immediately, like the rumor let fly like within a week after ChatGPT that Google was on high alert because of ChatGPT. So we'll talk about Google. We'll talk about NVIDIA because they have, in terms of competitors, Google and NVIDIA are probably the top because Google has Palm and DeepMind and all their other research into neural networks. In fact, Google started a lot of this with their universal sentence encoder and other technologies back in the day. And I say back in the day because it was like 5 years ago. NVIDIA has their Megatron Nemo, which is a 540 billion parameter model. It's 4 times larger than GPT-3. So like, is it potentially more powerful? We'll see. What about Meta? What about IBM? Then there's also startups and open source. So let's talk about competitors. All right, so the first competitor is Google. So search is Google's primary business and has been forever. It's like 70+% of their revenue comes from search, and all the AI research that they've done has branched off or has contributed to that. So BERT, for instance, already helps Google search. So in some respects, ChatGPT is like late to the game because Google, it's like, yeah, we've been using large language models for search. Who cares? And BERT is a more mature technology. So I have no doubt that Google is going to come up with a solution, probably come up with a better solution, honestly, because they're a much more mature tech company. and they have a very, very highly developed engineering core and a huge engineering core, by the way. So I suspect that once Google commits its mind to something, it's going to figure it out. And so this is why I wanted to point out, look out for the Tesla effect. Tesla has really lost its luster over the last year as other car companies. One, there's startups like Rivian and GoEV or Canoe, and then all the old players, Ford, GM, Volkswagen, less so the Japanese companies, which is really interesting. A lot of Japanese car companies have been resistant to the switch to electric. Anyways, point being is that there is a lot to be said for larger companies that have the experience, and once they commit to something, they often do it better than the startups. So OpenAI is still a startup, and so I suspect that once companies like Google commit to competing with OpenAI, they're not going to be able to keep up. So Google is an absolute powerhouse too. We're talking about integrations. Look up a list of everything that Google owns. Google owns Nest, Fitbit, and YouTube, just for starters. I noticed that YouTube started recommending chapters, and I wonder if they based it off my idea. Anyways, so YouTube has been doing automatic transcripts for a while. Imagine what else YouTube can do with ChatGPT-like things. Imagine if you just have like a little chat window, like where you have your YouTube concierge bot, and it's like, hey, help me find a video about this, this, and this. This is what I'm in the mood for today. And it's like, okay, cool. Just off the cuff idea. So yeah, Google is going to be a major competitor, probably the biggest competitor, honestly. Next up is NVIDIA. So NVIDIA has the chips. This is the one thing that really sets NVIDIA apart is when you look at the top tech companies in the world, this is one of the only like hardware first companies. They have CUDA, which for those who are not aware, CUDA is the bindings, the integrations that allow for AI to be done super fast. So they have the hardware, they have the underlying hardware, and they have the underlying software. They also have the best algorithm people in the world, which means that they are an incredible powerhouse. And I think that we have just woken a sleeping giant, honestly. And because they sell the underlying hardware that runs AI all over the world, they don't care whose model it is, right? You're going to put NVIDIA chips in computers and cars. They're not as much in mobile as like ARM and Qualcomm and stuff, but where there's a will, there's a way. NVIDIA really what they're focusing on is enterprise class server hardware, and so they might not branch into mobile, but they also have their gaming division, which is desktop level. So pretty much everything from desktop and larger, NVIDIA is probably going to dominate the AI hardware market. And again, whether it's GPT-3 or their own Megatron or open source models, they kind of don't care. It's like, okay, sure, like AI is good. It's going to run on our hardware, whether or not you use our software or our service. So now, that being said, if NVIDIA decides to compete with ChatGPT, because they have the best algorithm people in the world, I suspect they're going to be able to do it more efficiently, right? Because ChatGPT is not the fastest right now. It's also, it is cheap, but eventually you're going to get to economies of scale. Who can do it for 5 cents an hour versus who can do it for a penny an hour, right? And it's like, oh, well, if this company can do it for 5 cents versus 1 cent, that sounds like not a lot. But imagine that you're a company that has 20,000 employees using ChatGPT all day, every day. That adds up. And if it's 5 times cheaper because of efficiencies, that's gonna be a game changer. So keep your eye on NVIDIA. Another possible competitor is Meta. So Meta has a very powerful AI research branch, but they don't have any service offerings. So this is one of the weird things about Meta is that they've got a really good AI research arm that publishes a lot of open source stuff, and they probably consume their own research, but then they don't do anything with it, right? It's kind of like how Google publishes a lot of research and then like they integrate some of it, but then they let the rest be open source. The difference though is that Meta is going all in on the metaverse, and they're kind of collapsing because of it. Meta also has a problematic past with misusing machine learning, which is, in my opinion, one of the primary reasons that it is presently uncertain, is the documentaries like The Great Hack and The Social Dilemma came out, And for me, like that 1-2 punch was like, yeah, I'm going to delete my Facebook account. It was just like, I knew that it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad. So Meta's future is uncertain, and they're doubling down on the metaverse. So who knows if they're even going to be a competitor. I don't think they're going to be that big as a competitor to ChatGPT. Another possible competitor is IBM. So for many, many years, IBM had Watson, which was supposed to be, the flagship natural language interface that had a nice smooth voice, and then it didn't go anywhere, right? And as far as I know, IBM is shuttering Watson. I don't know if it's been shut down or if they're just not investing in it until it goes away, but IBM is all in on quantum computing. They were originally a hardware company. I don't remember what the name was originally, but one of the first products that IBM's progenitor company did was time cards, like the physical, like punching in and punching out. So they have always been a hardware company first and foremost. They do. That's not to say that they don't also do really good software, but when you think IBM, you think like, okay, IBM mainframes. They had Lenovo that they sold off. Now they're working on quantum computing hardware. So they are the original blue chip tech stock. So if they decide to pivot back towards large language models, they certainly have the horsepower to do it. But there's been nothing from them yet. So I don't suspect that IBM is going to be a competitor in the large language model space or ChatGPT. Microsoft, this is the surprise competitor. So Microsoft was an early and major investor in OpenAI. They do have an exclusive license to GPT-3, but I predict, and this is apropos of nothing. I have not heard any rumors of this. I haven't seen any tweets or leaks. This is just me thinking through, okay, if I am Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and I have this golden goose that I'm partnered with, what do I do, right? Microsoft just announced that they're going to have an Azure offering of GPT-3 and ChatGPT and a few other similar products. So they're taking it away from OpenAI, but they have to pay OpenAI because it's a licensing model. So they probably want the golden goose. If I was Microsoft, what I might be doing is working on building my own version in-house. An alternative to GPT-3, a competitor to GPT-3, because when you look across the landscape, Microsoft is the preeminent business software company, right? They've got Azure, they've got a huge investment in AI, they know that AI is the future, and so they've got this this partnership with OpenAI. And again, OpenAI is not the most mature company. They're not experienced as a vendor. They're not experienced as a tech company. Until very recently, they were strictly a nonprofit doing research. And when you look at their approach to AI, it is still very much like science first, research first, and product second or third priority, which is very odd. But hey, it's carried them this far. They have hypothetically pivoted to being a for-profit company, so we'll see if they can pull it off. But at the same time, Microsoft and other companies have a long history of just acquiring valuable IP through mergers and acquisitions. So I would suspect that Microsoft is like they did announce that they're going to expand. They're going to get a 49% stake in OpenAI. This is the rumor, at least. And I guarantee you they want 51%. So they will do everything that they can to get that last 2% so that they get a controlling stake in OpenAI and just absorb it. So that's not necessarily a competitor, but the willpower is there. That's why Microsoft is like, hey, we're going to write you a check for $10 more billion. Okay, so let's talk about impact. What does all this mean? Like if there's all these integrations that are possible and that are coming, and there's all this competition, what's going to happen to us and other people? So first, I know you want to know, what is the impact to our jobs? So paradoxically, I think the first impact is we're actually going to see a boost in jobs. There's going to be an entirely new category of worker, just like I had a recent interview with one of the world's first professional prompt engineers. That is a new category of employee that did not exist a year or two ago. So now we're going to have another new category of people that can use ChatGPT to be the human brain steering this really powerful tool. We presently have a shortfall of 4 to 5 million knowledge workers. I think that ChatGPT, maybe not version 1, but version 1.5 or 2, could help fill in that jobs gap. Can you imagine if we just suddenly added 4 million more jobs, like more people working? And these would be good, like solid middle class jobs. Like I'm talking 50 to 70,000 a year just for a competent ChatGPT user. So I think that we're going to see a very, in the short term, a big boost to hiring and employment. Now, in the long run, automation and AI is still expected to destroy jobs, because what happens as these technologies mature and people get better at them, you have one person that can do the job of 10, and then you have another person that can do the job of 100. As an automator, I mean, this is why my Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube handles say Dave Schaap Automator. I have been someone who has automated jobs for more than a decade now. And so when you have a good automator, you reduce headcount, like by 10 or 20. And then technologies like ChatGPT will empower more people who are not as knowledgeable and skilled as I am at automation to automate more. So then you have lots and lots of people automating jobs away. And so one of my recent videos where I talked about, I think it was Financial Times or something. Anyways, lots of people are predicting that like up to 70 million jobs or more could be destroyed in America alone by 2030. And I think that ChatGPT is going to be one of the technologies that helps facilitate that. All right. Impact number 2, a little less gloomy. Let's see how technologies like this will impact our daily life. So things are going to be more convenient. Our smartphones are so convenient already that we are like attached to them, right? So imagine if they become even more useful, right? Right now it's kind of a dumb little box that just waits there and gives you notifications that are very stressful. But what if we can switch to more voice interface, and so you don't even have a screen anymore? What if the smartphone of the future is just a headset, right? That you talk to and has no screen at all. Right, and maybe a little holographic pop-up so that it can show you stuff when you need to, or like smart glasses or whatever. So daily life, I think, will be a little bit more like Star Trek, where you just talk to the thing and it does the thing for you, like Jarvis from Iron Man. Oh, and by the way, this was the point of my Raven project originally, was I wanted to create a ubiquitous smart assistant for everything. Still the goal. Because ChatGPT is obviously a long ways off from being ubiquitous, being something that you can have a voice conversation with and that can solve problems for you. But we'll get there. So that's within a year or two, you're going to start seeing ChatGPT and ChatGPT-like technologies being integrated into your daily life. So while jobs are going away, at least your life will be more convenient. Impact number 3. This is actually going to be really big, and I did an entire video series, or a long video on this, is education. ChatGPT has the potential to completely revolutionize education. So the first thing that people are worried about is cheating, but that is thinking so small. So imagine flipping the classroom, where instead of the teacher lecturing to a bunch of students and they're all learning the same thing at the same time, what if you flip that around and the students are all learning at their own rate the things that they are most interested in, and the things that resonate with them, and the teacher is there to help and provide feedback, coaching, and guidance as they need it. And so the way that I think of it is, we already have a model for this, and it's called Montessori education. My first year of schooling was in Montessori school, and looking back on it, I'm like, why isn't school more like this? Even if it's not 100% Montessori, like what if half of every day is self-directed for kids, so that we don't squash their sense of curiosity, right? So if you integrate ChatGPT with the classroom, you can have stuff like PBL, which is project-based learning on steroids. And a simpler way of thinking about it is, imagine where every classroom has one human teacher and then 30 personalized teacher aides, right? Let's think of it this way, like ChatGPT has the possibility to completely overturn education. And after talking to nearly a dozen educators over the last couple of weeks, there's a huge appetite to try some of this stuff out. There's also some resistance, but it's such a compelling case, I think it's going to happen. All right, impact number 4, business and economy. So one thing to think about this is not just AI, right? AI and machine learning have been around for a while. ChatGPT is a new category. And so what I mean by a new category is like the switch from horses to cars, or the switch from, fax machines to email, right? The introduction of the internet. So the bottom line is that the impact to GDP, gross domestic product, is going to be massive, just by virtue of how intelligent these agents are and how much efficiency and how much horsepower it can inject into the economy. So GDP goes up, stocks probably go up. Impact to individuals, unfortunately, will probably be neutral or negative unless we redistribute that wealth. In my other video where I talked about the economy and stuff, I showed that that worker pay and the benefits that we workers reap peaked in the year 2000, and it's been all downhill from there. And then depending on other metrics you look at, such as the introduction of neoliberalism, worker quality of life actually peaked in 1980. So it's been, depending on how you look at it, it's either been 20 years or 40 years of stagnation, total stagnation for workers, despite the fact that productivity has gone through the roof. So we are not redistributing the wealth. Trickle-down theory does not work. And yes, I have a love-hate relationship with capitalism and neoliberalism, because on the one hand, I'm all for finding efficiency. On the other hand, I also want it to be fair. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. Impact number 5, military and industry. So while I suspect that there can be some benefits of integrating ChatGPT with helicopters and tanks and warships, it's actually probably going to be negligible, because particularly Western militaries, modern militaries, already have top-of-the-line command and control systems. They have the best cryptographics teams. They have laser-based communications that cannot be interrupted. They have redundant communications. They have autonomous drones, all kinds of stuff. So the impact to military is actually probably going to be pretty small. It's just going to be another little thing that kind of differentiates powerful militaries like the United States a little bit more from developing countries and other competitors. Also, raw materials and logistics and bulk goods, those are heavy, right? ChatGPT is not going to make them any lighter. So stuff like ChatGPT is only going to change so much. Like, it's not going to make dump trucks 80% more efficient, that kind of thing. The biggest thing, I think, will be lights out factories. So if you're not familiar with the concept of a lights out factory is a factory that has no humans in it. It is all either completely autonomous or robotic or remotely controlled. And so I think that ChatGPT technologies will basically make running factories like StarCraft or Total Annihilation or Command and Conquer, where you have one person just clicking on a robot and you tell it go do this, and the robot goes off and does the thing that you told it to. So I suspect that the overall, the impact to military and industry will probably be pretty minimal. All right, so that wraps it up. Thanks for watching. Quick reminder: if you support me on Patreon, we'll take down the ads for good, so on and so forth. You know the drill. Thanks for watching.